The next morning, we woke up to cloudless blue skies, and the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone were waiting for us. By the way, approaching the Grand Tetons on a Bluebird day has to be on everybody's bucket list. We only spent a few hours at the Grand Tetons, and they were hours very well spent. It is a very spectacular mountain range. And then it was on to Yellowstone. We entered Yellowstone through the southern entrance, where years ago wildfires raged, but by now nature is starting to come back. From there, we gradually made our way towards Old Faithful. The eruption of Old Faithful that we witnessed was not very high this time, but still very impressive. Regrettably, the skies were a bit overcast, so that the contrast of the steam with blue skies was not as strong as I had hoped for my pictures. We encountered our first bison that afternoon, grazing along the edges of the Madison River. And while Old Faithful had not been on its best behavior, Roaring Mountain gave us a beautiful show with lots of steam from every crevice. The next day, we spent touring Yellowstone. Norris Geyser Basin is always one of my personal favorites because there is no other place like it that I have ever seen. Mud pots, fumaroles, mini geysers, hissing, vibrant colors from the abundant extremophile bacteria, and at the same time, easy to understand why this place also invokes images of hell with its inhospitable environment and foul odors from the sulfur. Another favorite area is around Grand Prismatic Pond. Deep blue ponds, bright red rims from all the bacteria, crackled surfaces, and bison footprint in the scalding hot water. That afternoon, we visited the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone with the beautiful Yellowstone Falls. The encore for that day was Mammoth Hot Springs with a uniquely beautiful area called Minerva's Terrace. At this point in my trip, it was time for Ludo to go back to Boulder, and we went our separate ways. On my way to Craters of the Moon, for the first time in my life, I ran out of gas. Luckily, on the side of the road, I ran into a policeman who helped me out and had his colleague drive 20 miles out of town to bring me some gas. That would have been a long walk. To thank him, I bought him breakfast at his sister's diner in town. They all had a good laugh at my expense. Random encounters. I rode with these guys for about an hour, and then, as spontaneously as we had come together, we went our separate ways again. Craters of the Moon is a national park in southern Idaho. It is a large volcanic landscape and completely desolate. Black lava, flowers, vistas, but surely not a place for people to live. The name Craters of the Moon is very well chosen. As you walk around, you do feel like you're on the surface of the moon, surrounded by gray-black ash contrasting with the black-yellow spring flowers. From Craters of the Moon, it was over Idaho's back roads and on to Boise. It is a nearly zen-like experience to ride over these relatively empty roads for hours at a time, just being by yourself with your own thoughts. The next day, I enjoyed a beautiful ride, following the gorge of the Columbia River all the way out to Portland, Oregon. Entering the last part of my trip, I rode through lush green forest to Highway 1 to travel down the coastline along the Pacific Ocean. With the fog rolling in every night, the route down Highway 1 ended up being the coldest part of my whole trip. love the Southern Oregon and Northern California coastline with its endless variations of blue water and surf, rock formations protruding from the ocean with its lush green forests, and beautiful beaches. One of the most beautiful stretches of my whole trip was the Avenue of the Giants, a 46-mile ride in Humboldt County, narrow road that weaves in between giant redwoods that tower 200, 300 feet high. A truly super spectacular experience. I spent my last night on the road in Mendocino, a quaint town along the coast. From there, it was back to San Francisco, and finally, home sweet home, Los Altos. And thus, I had come to the end of my trip. I had ridden through the Nevada desert, and I had visited the beautiful Black Canyon of the Gunnison. Together with my brother Ludo, I had ridden through the Rocky Mountains. I had toured the majestic Grand Tetons and beautiful Yellowstone. I had walked the craters of the moon. I had smelled the salty water of the Pacific Ocean. And I had seen the Golden Gate and beautiful San Francisco. And now I was safely back home.